Borderline and narcissism are two disorders that can get confused because of some of their similarities, but even their similarities are different because the intention behind why they're doing what they're doing is completely different, which is what we will be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the difference between narcissism and borderline. But before we get into today's video, if you are new here, welcome. My name's Missy. I am a life and relationship coach, and on this channel we get to the root of the issue and we learn how to heal and deal. So if that's your thing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would love for you to be a part of the fam, and if you already are a subscriber, I appreciate you so much. Let's jump into today's video. So narcissism and borderline are both on a spectrum. So you can have some traits or you can have the full-on disorder, and there's like in-betweens right in there. And every single person acts differently. There are some borderlines, about 25% are narcissistic, but not all borderlines are narcissistic and not all narcissists are borderline. The first difference is, let's define them. What is borderline? Borderline is a disorder where they will have unstable and intense moods and behaviors. This is usually triggered by their immense fear of abandonment and also their low self-esteem. Now, what is narcissism? Narcissism is a mental disorder where one has an inflated sense of self-importance. The reason why these two can overlap is because they are both cluster B disorders. So they have some similarities, but they have differences. So one of the first similarities is that they are very reactive emotionally. So they both have an impaired insight into how negative behavior will result in consequences. Borderlines naturally are very impulsive. The minute they feel something, they go ahead and do it, or they have an urge to do it. Narcissists, they can be impulsive, but they also can be very calculating as well. It really depends. Some are more calculated than others. Others are more impulsive. But overall, they both have an end goal where they have unhealthy coping mechanisms to fulfill this emotional need. And so they have very impaired logic because they do react very much off of their emotion, and they don't reason or think things through before they go ahead and do those things. And that's partially because they've both been through some sort of trauma. And so they're still operating from that inner child. And I know some people are going to be like, oh, well, there's narcissists that have been through inner trauma. They've gotten everything they've ever wanted, but that's still neglectful. That's still not healthy. Maybe it's not a trauma, but it's still some sort of abuse when you are given everything you wanted. So they're still operating from the inner child. They're stuck in the inner child because they weren't given the tools on how to deal with these emotions. And so they both suffer with cognitive distortion, which means they don't read the environment of how it actually is. They may tell themselves this story, or they kind of twist how things actually are to fulfill some sort of emotion, or a story that gives into some sort of insecurity. So they will perceive a certain situation the way that it actually is not, and then they will get triggered, and then they will respond a certain way in order to deal with their wounded ego, or to deal with this fear, or to deal with this insecurity. So for instance, if you gently reminded a narcissist that they made a spelling error, they may then attack you and call you an idiot, and how dare you try to correct them, and that they know better. They perceived it as you calling them an idiot, when in reality that is not true. You didn't say that at all. They twisted reality. Really, you were just trying to help them out. And then with someone that has borderline, if you say, hey, I can't talk right now, they see it as, oh no, like they are trying to avoid me, they don't want to talk to me ever, and then they will spiral and they may get an urge to hurt themselves, or they may get an urge to push you away and be mean to you and say, I didn't want to talk to you anyways. So let's go for a little bit further into that. Let's talk about what they're both triggered by and how they usually respond. So a narcissist is usually triggered by lack of control, abandonment, because they do too also have a fear of abandonment, being called out, challenged, and also shame. Now with their fear of abandonment, it's different than a borderline's fear of abandonment. The reason why they fear abandonment is because they need constant supply, and they need people that they can control and manipulate at all times. So their main goal is that they crave special treatment and power. Now what happens when they don't feel like they have that, or they feel like they're triggered, that will result in a narc injury, which can result in smear campaign. It can result in them lashing out and devaluing you. It can result in them throwing a tantrum, playing victim, crying, having a huge anger attack, Or they may pretend that nothing happened, that you guys didn't even have a fight, that you're crazy. Or they may threaten their life, but they're not doing it because they actually mean it. It's to regain control, and it's a way to guilt you and manipulate you to do what they want. But they'll never actually go through with it, and they don't have an urge to do it. They love themselves too much. They just have probably seen in the past how good of a manipulation tactic it was, where they got what they wanted when they did that. Now, borderline is triggered by their fear of abandonment, or when they have a negative view of themselves, or they feel like no one likes them. So this results in them turning inwards, and then them trying to find a way where they can regain control. So they may manipulate, they may be passive aggressive, they may be straight up aggressive, or they may completely isolate or remove themselves and try to push you away. They'll self-sabotage. Or also they may become submissive and become a big people pleaser and become very desperate. So this can result in them pleading and begging and maybe even crying, or just walking on eggshells and trying to make sure that they don't do anything to upset you, and maybe even will do some love bombing. Now also another way they deal with when they're triggered is they will want to harm themselves, or they will want to end their life, because when they're triggered they get stuck in that cognitive distortion, and they get stuck in the story that keeps replaying in their mind over and over again. They feel like there's no way out. They really feel deprived of that need and being abandoned, and also they feel like they're such a terrible person, there's no way out of this situation. But this is a cry for help, or this is a way they deal with their pain. And they don't know how to ask for help or let people know that they're suffering. Also may get these feelings that they deserve it, because they're telling themselves all these negative things. No one likes them, they're a terrible person. They feel like they deserve this pain, or they don't deserve to be alive, which is very sad. And a big reason why narcissists and borderline will manipulate is because they weren't taught how to communicate, or they were belittled, or they were dismissed when they communicated. So they learned, oh, okay, the only way to get what I want or what I need, because they're trying to fulfill a need, is by manipulating others. They were taught that they couldn't just ask for what they needed, or they have a hard time being able to handle no. So this is their unhealthy way of getting their needs met. Another thing they have in common, but is also different at the same time, is that they both are needy and need attention. But with narcissists, they want the spotlight. They want everyone to adore them and admire them. They need that ego boost. They need for people to love them, and they also need people that they can devalue and they can put down. With borderlines, they don't need attention from everyone, but they do need attention from their person, the person that they feel like meets all of their needs. Because usually with borderlines, they'll pick one or two people that they feel like meet all their needs. With borderline, it's because that huge fear of abandonment. You have an insecure attachment with your parent, and so your needs were met very inconsistently, and so then you didn't get your needs met as a child, which then you didn't learn how to meet your own needs. So with borderline, they feel like they need someone to meet all of their needs. They feel like they can't survive without this person. So they'll be overly needy, where they need constant affection, constant attention. They need this person maybe to solve their problems. They need this person to be everything that they want and more, because of these deep insecurities. Another thing they have in common is they both idolize and devalue, but again, it's completely different, the reasonings. So like I was just talking about with borderline, they have someone that they feel meets all their needs, and they put them on a pedestal. And then what happens when this person does something that the borderline sees as wrong, like maybe not giving them enough attention, or maybe they went to work without giving them a kiss, whatever it was, they then will lash out and devalue this person and say like the meanest things, or maybe they'll be very passive aggressive, but they don't express what's actually going on. So the reason why they do this is because they're hurt and they don't know how to express this pain. It's not because they want to, it's because they don't know how to get their needs met any other way. They just know they have this pain and they don't know how to they don't know how to deal with this pain, so this is the way they learn to cope with the pain. And then when that person triggers their fear, they lash out. So basically they lash out when their fears are triggered. Now with narcissists, they idolize people that have a high status, or they have resources that they want. Maybe they have personality traits that they want, they have a life that they want, and so they will put them on a pedestal, especially during the love bombing stage. And then when they realize this person has a mind of their own, that's when the devaluing comes into play. That's when the delusion, like the blinds come off. That's when the rose-colored glasses come off, and they want to put this person into a place where the narcissist can be in power and the other person feels helpless. Now, one huge difference between borderline and narcissist is borderlines can self-reflect. They feel guilt and shame after lashing out, after hurting others. They actually can be pretty empathetic people. And I know some people that have been through relationships where they were with a borderline that was very abusive, they're gonna be like, absolutely not. But those were people that are probably on the more of the narcissist spectrum borderline, but a lot of borderlines do have a lot of empathy and they get a bad rep. So because they can't think about the consequence of what would happen, because they run a lot on their emotion, what happens after they act out is they feel so terrible. They feel very remorseful. They feel upset about it. So then they feel worse about themselves, and then it triggers more of their fear of abandonment. Like, what have I done? This person's now really gonna leave me. I'm really always gonna be alone. And so they'll try to draw that person back in. So it can be confused with the love bombing abuse cycle. And I mean, it is abusive the way it is, but their intention is different. They don't intend to abuse. Now, with a lot of borderlines, they regret doing it. They don't want to do it, but they feel so out of control. And when they have these emotions, it's like a tick that they can't stop. Some people black out. It's something they don't have control over sometimes if they don't have the proper tools and if they don't have the proper help. They're not aware of the sensations. They immediately get this feeling and they immediately are like, I need to get rid of this feeling. I need this to stop, because they're so terrified of being isolated and abandoned. So a lot of borderlines, they can't help it, and it's like a scratch they need to itch. But like I said, with the proper tools, with DBT and also CBT, they learn how to deal with this itch in healthier ways. Now, narcissists, none of them self-reflect. They don't have the capability to self-reflect. In their prefrontal cortex, it is thin, so they have less empathy. And they have less ability to be able to self-reflect. It's broken inside of them. But they do have shame. And some people will be like, oh, they don't have shame. No, they do have shame. Otherwise, they wouldn't try to hide their abuse and try to hide all the things they're doing. They do have shame. Some of them also do experience guilt, but they try to hide it. They deny it. It's like way deep, deep, deep down in their subconscious, even in their unconscious mind possibly. But the way they hide it and the way they deal with it is by projecting. It's by devaluing others. Is by belittling or dismissing others. They hide it by feeling like they have power over others. Or they will deal with their shame by playing the victim, or again, pretending nothing happened. So it's all about hiding everything they're really feeling. They don't express what's actually going on. With borderline, if they really take some time, they definitely self-reflect, but if they take some time, they're able to identify, hey, I was feeling this way. When you were angry and you left, I was triggered. I thought that you were going to leave me, or you were going to see another person, or you were going to go cheat on me. With the narcissist, you can't have a conversation like that. They don't self-reflect. They don't tell you what they're actually feeling. They have this delusion, and you're always the problem. Another big difference is narcissists generally have a high opinion of themselves. They're grandiose. They think great of themselves. In actuality, a lot of narcissists are deeply insecure. That's why they have this huge ego to think that they're so great. But really, like, if you were to challenge them, that's why they immediately get a narc injury, because it's not genuine confidence. But the way they express themselves, especially overts, they overly express how good they are. With covert narcissists, they definitely more are humble. Not even humble. They're more manipulative in the way that they express how good they are. It's very passive aggressive, the way that they act like they're better than others. They also will mirror people and copy some of their traits to manipulate others. They generally have a pretty consistent view of themselves, but they will mirror to manipulate other people. So they may appear that they're one way in order to manipulate you, but really they think pretty highly of themselves. Now with borderlines, they have a pretty unstable self-image. On a regular basis, they feel pretty negative towards themselves, and they feel worthless, and they feel very unlovable. And so because they don't have a strong sense of self, they often will mirror other people or copy other people or mold themselves into what other people want in order to be liked. So they may alter their values, their views, their opinions, their ideas, will alter them to kind of fit in so that someone else will like them, because they desperately need that. They need the approval and love of others. Another thing they share is that they both are afraid of doing things differently or afraid of change, because they're used to chaos and they're a little bit addicted to chaos, because with chaos they know what to expect. They can predict in chaos. And then if they do something differently, they don't know what to expect. That's very scary. So they get stuck in their ways. But with borderline, I feel that they're more open because they can self-reflect, and because they don't want to be like this. They want things to be different, or they don't like lashing out like this. They just feel like they have no other option. So they're more open to change. But there are some borderlines that aren't. So those are the similarities and differences. Now, if you were someone that suffers with borderline, I hurt for you. I'm genuinely sorry. That is so hard dealing with it, because I feel like you guys do get a bad rap. Even though there are people with borderline that do have narcissism, not all of you have narcissism, and not all of you want to intentionally hurt people. But at the end of the day, some of your coping mechanisms are unhealthy and they are abusive towards others. Even though if you have borderline and you've suffered, you still have to hold yourself accountable and understand when you lash out, these things are abusive, and it's not okay to do these things no matter how hurt you are. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to guilt or shame yourself over it. It just means that you need to consciously be more aware. You're not a bad person, you just have a hard time regulating your emotions. But you can learn how to regulate your emotions through CBT and DBT. So if you haven't reached out for help, reach out for help. Life doesn't have to be like this. Life can get better. You can have healthy relationships. You just need the proper help. So don't be afraid to reach out for help. And on that note, what do you guys think? Leave it all in the comments below. And please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with someone that you think may need it. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye, guys. Has an inflated sense of self. I tried to change my lighting. There's literally a sheet over my window right now because I don't have blinds. Why don't I have blinds? I don't know. Also, it's snowing and it's blinding me, but it's kind of cute. It's kind of cute outside. I'm ready for spring.